Hello, I'm Ed Rabyd, otherwise known as the Rabyd Atheist, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. You are free to like or dislike the video, so please feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You are free to share my videos as much as you like as well. As you can see from the title, this is week 14. It's hard to believe that I've been doing this long. I'm actually past the 3-month mark, and I'm still here. A lot of weird things have happened in the world, a lot of things going on. I could have done this video about COVID-19, but quite frankly, I'm sick and tired of talking about it. I will probably mention it in today's video as an example, but I'm not going to address that topic directly. I'm done with it. I'm done talking about it. I've gotten to the point where I want to talk about anything else. I'd rather talk about, the wonders of pop music and I'm a metalhead. I'd rather do anything else as a topic other than COVID-19 at this point. I think it's just a topic that's just wore me out. And, it's the fear associated with it and all this other crap. And I just don't have time for it anymore. But at the same time, it's a topic of our day. But I was asked this week, a friend, I can't remember if it was a friend or it was a comment somebody made about atheists or whatever. And, it went along the lines of all atheists are alike. Okay, I want to refresh everybody's memory. If you've watched some of my videos, you already know my take on this. Atheists only have one thing really in common. They don't believe in a central single deity. I've known some pagan atheists. I actually classify myself as a pagan atheist. I study Norse mythology and Norse religion, and I even, wear symbols of it, runes and stuff. I've got some face masks coming for work, saying we're now required to wear masks, that have some Nordic traditions to them. And I just like that stuff. It's not because I believe in Odin or Thor or any of that stuff. I think those are mythological, and I just have included one more deity, the one that's in the pages of the Bible. I'm just like, yeah, no, he falls in the same category as Odin. So that's kind of where I stand with that. So I want to reiterate that all atheists are not alike. There's really only one thing that really, is the defining factor of being an atheist. You just don't believe in God, which I think is the default position, and everybody else has to prove their point. If you're going to make a big claim like there is a God, that seems to be that it would be something that would have a lot of evidence to it. And, you should, hard evidence that you could take to court, not just a feeling or, emotions or whatever else that most people prove God with. Once again, your personal experience is not proof of God. It just proves it to you, but nobody else. All right. But another question that kind of came up this week, is there anything about atheists that I don't like as an atheist? I guess I'm going to use a lot of YouTubers as examples. A lot of things have happened this week that I would say, I've been watching my normal YouTube channels that are atheists just to kind of see what's going on and all the other stuff. And it's times like this, times of crisis, that yes, a few of my atheist brothers and sisters and whatever, they say stuff, and I like, this is what I couldn't stand in Christianity, and they're doing the same damn thing. Okay, maybe it's because I'm a former religious figure that I notice when people are acting religiously. Okay, there's a certain mindset to being a religious person. Okay, there's certain things you just accept a priori without exception. I want to re-stress something. As the rabid atheist, I am a skeptic of every damn thing. There is absolutely nothing that comes across my plate that I am not skeptical of. Okay, now that's not a bad thing. Okay, it keeps me, I have had a lot of people say a lot of things to my face that were complete bullshit. And so, over the years, I have had pastors send me certain directions that I found out, these apologists that defended the faith were completely debunked by somebody else. Creationists over the years have made bold claims. And then I would go look it up, and it's like, no, this has been proven false. This doesn't exist. You're quoting this person out of context. Happens a lot with creationists. So I have a big bullshit detector with that stuff, but that goes for everything. I made the mention before that I'm a libertarian atheist. No gods, no master. I put the government and politics in the same category as religious belief in God, because a lot of people look at the government as their savior. And I see a lot of atheists that do this. A lot of atheists go liberal. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that the liberals are wrong just because they're liberals. But liberals as a tendency are humanist, which is not bad either, but they look to government as a solution. And they look to government with religious devotion. I've seen very patriotic atheists who, no matter what the United States does, it's never wrong, okay? Or no matter what, particularly with foreign policy or something like that, or they're devoted to a political party, Republican or Democrat, and that leader, whoever the leader is of those parties at the time, can't say anything wrong. They appeal to those people's authority. I'm going to say this now, and I'm going to say it later for something else. But an appeal to authority is not an argument. It just isn't. And it's funny because atheists say, yeah, of course, it's logical fallacy. I've used that against religion and the Bible all the time. Just because you can appeal to this authority doesn't mean I should have to do it. Okay. Then why is it that some atheists seem hell-bent on turning around and saying something like, that's what the law says? I ran into that this day. One of my favorite guys is the Telltale atheist, Telltale. I like watching him. He has good short snippets. His YouTube videos are often shorter than mine, and he gets a lot of content in. But his latest release, and I'll card it over my head so you can go there and watch it for yourself, he did two things that I see people doing that drive me nuts. Okay, as somebody who has taken on faith as this authority thing. And one of them was, obey the law. That's what the law says. Do what the law. That is an appeal to authority. The law is not, I repeat, not necessarily moral in and of itself. It has to prove itself, just like anything else. So when somebody says, the law says I have to quarantine, that's an appeal to authority. They're saying that the authorities say that I have to do this. Doesn't make it automatically right, and it doesn't make it automatically good. Okay, I wish that some of my fellow atheists would look at the quarantine and look at the effects of this virus with the same skeptical eye that they look at a creationist, but they don't. And I think it's because they have a tendency to believe in science a little bit more. They tend to, just sometimes just accept what science says sometimes, or what the discovery says. The whole point of science is that it constantly subjects itself to scrutiny and constantly focuses itself on being challenged. The whole peer review process, the whole point of that is to have peers look at your work and challenge it, because that gets you better science. It gets you, not a viewpoint that's myopic. So when I see things like, Obama said this, or Bush or Trump said this, and people taking it as the gospel as an atheist, it's like you do realize you're using the same kind of mindless devotion to these political figures that you use with God, that a religious person would use to God. And when you appeal to the law, it's the same thing. The law is mendable and changeable. It is fallible. It is fully capable of being wrong. It is not a moral guide any more than the Bible. Okay. There was times when it was lawful for a husband to beat the living shit out of his wife. It's been lawful for one person to own another person. It was the law. So appeal to the law is nothing more than an appeal to the authority. And to tell me that I have to obey the quarantine simply because it's the law, nope. Same problem. Okay. Another way I see this of replacing God is not accepting any criticism of the favorite scientific theory. Evolution, for instance, and global warming kind of fall into this category. I wonder sometimes if an alternative view other than creationism came forward to explain how things work biologically on planet Earth that was different than the theory of evolution, how it would be received. Would we stand on the old data like it's the Bible, or would we honestly and genuinely consider the other point of view? If a creationist actually came up with a valid study, got it peer-reviewed by secular people and said, there might be some truth to this, would it be considered? Okay, and I think that's a question because sometimes I see this mindless devotion. Global warming is a favorite of mine. People ask me, do I believe in it? Yes, I think the science is pretty clear that the planet is warming up. It's been warming up since the Ice Age. Okay, the last Ice Age was, I don't remember, I think 20,000 years ago. It's been warming up since then, pretty steadily and continually. I think geologists have kind of pointed that out to me. I don't remember where I read it, but maybe somebody can correct me here. But I'm open to correction. But you're more. But the thing with global warming is it's been happening for a while. And the planet has alternated from very, very hot to very, very cold back and forth 100 million times without industrialization or human beings. Now, I'm saying that human beings are part of the natural world causing this. Like it or not, we have learned to survive because of our tools. And sometimes our tools create pollution. In fact, any economist will tell you it's literally impossible to be productive and not create some sort of waste product. It just happens. And I'm not sure what to call it. If waste products are part of the natural order, once upon a time, oxygen was a waste product, okay? But then other organisms figured out how to use it, and bam, we're here, okay, because of that. So one organism's waste product ends up being another organism's tool to do whatever they do. But I do believe in global warming. I just believe it's happening very slowly. I believe that because things can be very sensitive to these things, you can see pretty dramatic effects of it. But I also know that the planet has been much warmer in the past and life survived. Okay, we're just the latest incarnation that happens to be on the top of the heap. I don't consider, don't put, some humanist atheists will put humanity up there in the God place. I don't think anything belongs in that throne, and I don't believe anything should be religiously devoted to like that. The other one is name calling. In the same video by Telltale, he references an article by the Friendly Atheist. I have not read the article. The title put me off. It said something about death cult member, and it's referring to this pastor that's still having services and asking for people's stimulus checks. I can't remember the guy's name. And in fact, quite frankly, if I did remember his name, I'd be embarrassed. I don't like this guy either. I want to make that abundantly clear. I think he's a leech, and I think he is leading his people to engage in risky behavior. However, to call him a death cult leader is name calling. You have to demonstrate that. Normally, Telltale, and if you ever watch this video, I want you to understand this is done in a very spirit. Just because there's a crisis and there's a lot of things to fear, that doesn't mean you get the right to suddenly suspend what you normally do when engaging a topic. It pains me to say this, but the Friendly Atheist engaged in name calling here, and then you kind of promoted it. And I love both of you guys. Okay, I've read you, I've watched you several times, and I know where you're coming from. I get it. However, if you were going to prove somebody on your show, Telltale, was a cult leader, you'd grab the bite model and you would prove that this guy is a cult leader. You would then come up with a criteria what qualifies as a death cult leader. And then you would see if this actually applies to him. And then you would say, okay, now I think he's right. But to just knee-jerk it and say he's right. It kind of leads to some of the other things that happened on that video. It's, your rights. This is another thing that irritates about atheists. Your rights end with your fist at my nose is probably a favorite quote of a lot of people. Your rights don't give you the right to take away the rights of others. And, of course, COVID-19, well, you're infecting other people, so therefore you're responsible. I want to let you know, I want to see how you're going to legally enforce that with colds, the flu, or any other virus. There is a reason why I think legally viruses are labeled as an act of nature, okay? Because they can't really be used with malicious intent unless you put them in a vial and inject somebody with them. Then it's a murder device. Okay, if I were to take a really overly souped up version of, say, the swine flu, put it in an injector and drive it into somebody's arm, that would be, it's the injection that makes that no longer a thing. But if I'm walking around with a swine flu and I just happen to cough on somebody and they get it, or it's on and I don't realize it, or I'm not flailing around, okay? I have a lot of problems with how this virus has been responded to, but mostly my problems are because there were alternate scientific theories that could have been used in other scientific models that were ignored. Not by everyone, but they could have been done, and they would have had, different kinds of effects. I think part of this is as I watch a lot of atheists, let their politics influence how they look at science. If their political opponent, for instance, I see a lot of liberal atheists going after Trump and others for calling herd immunity. Well, herd immunity is a legitimate scientific way of dealing with a virus. It's what Sweden's doing, okay, and several other smaller countries on a lesser scale than everybody else, but they sat down with their scientists, and their scientists were of the opinion, let it run through our society. Then we'll develop immunity to further strains of it. Our people will already have the immunity, so if it mutates, at least they have a better fighting chance having the virus and the antibodies in their system. So herd immunity is a legitimate scientific theory. But somebody comes out on the wrong side of the political aisle advocating for herd immunity. Oh, that's not real science. Yeah, it is. Okay. Instead of being joyful, they're atheists, that somebody's actually talking about a scientific theory on the other side of the aisle and maybe engaging one of them, instead of being happy that they're at least looking at something, you're going on because it's not the right theory of what you're doing right now. It's not what your political leaders are advocating for right now. So therefore, what your political leaders are advocating for is right, and what the other guy is advocating is wrong, even though both of them are looking at it from a scientific point of view. There's been two theories on how to deal with this thing, quarantine and isolation for a long period of time, house arrest, essentially, from my perspective, trying not to spread things, or just letting it run its course and dealing with it medically as much as possible. Those were two legitimate theories of how this could have been handled. Another one was, yes, let's do a quarantine, but let's isolate the sick people and let's isolate the vulnerable and let everybody else go about their business. This is what we've usually done in the United States for every other virus that we've had. Until this one. And so the charge of this is more as political as it is about science is very, very true. I don't think you can avoid that. As somebody who has studied political science and has a degree in it, I would say, yeah, there's politics. I absolutely giggle every time my own governor, Gretchen Whitmer, gets up there and says, I'm not being political. Bullshit. You're being absolutely political. Okay, don't show up to things and say you're not being political. You're a politician. We make decisions as groups, not as individuals. This is a democracy, not a dictatorship. This is a representative republic. Okay, my representative in Lansing has the right to voice my opinion and the opinions of his constituents and have that voice to be heard, whether you like that voice, agree with that voice, or whatever. And if he says, I think this quarantine is overdone, that's an opinion that should be out there, and it shouldn't be just shut down because, you wave your hand. And the people that get behind her, well, but some of these other people in Congress or the legislature are also getting those same briefings. and they're reading through all the different ways that this could have been handled. Well, why didn't we do this one? Why did we do this one instead of all these others? Okay, to think that we only had one possible solution to the COVID-19 crisis is nonsense. Scientists are going to throw out every possible way that this could have been dealt with. And then the political pundits get a hold of it and just go forward with it. And then the problem I have with some of my atheist friends is at that point, politics seems to guide them more than their reason. And yeah, that's something that drives me nuts about my fellow atheists. It's something I don't like. What I guess I'm basically saying with all of this is if logic and reason and the fallacies that you demonstrate for things like evolution and religion are true, they're still true for other subject matter. And you need to apply them with the same vigor. Now, I know that's not always possible, and I am a very gracious person. But this week, I've just seen a bunch of people do a lot of appeals to authority, a lot of name calling, a lot of appeals to science like it's some sort of God. Science, by its very nature, shouldn't be treated like a god. Science, by its nature, requires heavy skepticism to work. So when somebody says the scientific consensus is, the first thing that should happen is a whole bunch of other people say, well, I disagree with the scientific consensus. And the people that have that consensus should welcome that disagreement because that's science. And when I see my fellow atheists throw that out because it's politically expedient to go the other direction, it pisses me off. It makes me mad because at that point, you're being completely inconsistent and everybody can see it. If violating the rules of logic, if appeals to authority are bad when we yell at the Bible and religion and belief in God, then they're still bad when it comes to whether or not rights can be violated in the name of safety. Don't appeal to your authorities. Don't appeal to the law. Well, that's what the law says. Well, the law is allowed for some pretty shitty things morally, if you ask me. My personal view as a libertarian atheist is I put about as much trust in the government as I do in God, because both of these things are man-made, and both of these things have the same man-made flaws from being man-made. And so they should both be looked as a healthy deal of skepticism because both of them are used to manipulate, to control, to do things, make people do things that they normally wouldn't do. And because those both things, religion and politics, both have that kind of power, they both need to be viewed with the same amount of skepticism. And when I see my fellow atheists be completely skeptical of God, but turn right around and not be skeptical of anything scientific theory or their pet theory or their political party or their political leader, I think you have a problem. And you need to grow up a little bit and realize, hey, if these things apply to religion, they also apply over here. And, you know, I when the whole COVID-19 first started, I said, okay, what are the different ways that a nation this size could deal with this? We have always, in America, been very pragmatic about this up till now. The most pragmatic solution to dealing with a virus when you have a country this size is to quarantine the people that are sick and to encourage the people that are vulnerable to stay away from other people. And the people that have to be around those vulnerable people should take precautions like wearing masks and so on and so forth. That's been the normal way we've done it. We've never tried to quarantine all 330 million of us simply because we have a virus. I'm going to tell you that from a pragmatic standpoint, it would have been easier to do the former than the latter. It would have been much easier to convince people to do social distancing voluntarily, wear masks voluntarily, if you continue to give them their freedom. I think businesses could be told this is the criteria for staying open. Any business that can meet this criteria and keep people safe from this virus, doing everything else that everybody else is doing, then they should be allowed to be open regardless of the type of business. I think the whole essential, non-essential worker thing has created another social class system for us to yell at each other about. Well, you know, I'm an essential worker and you're not. You know, I mean, yeah, that's what we needed. One more, you know, one-upsmanship in society to have that. And that caused it just by creating it. I'm not sure how else you would do it. But yeah, there's some things that drive me nuts about atheists. But as it turns out, this is what drives me nuts about most human beings. So maybe what I'm really highlighting is atheists are human, and that's okay. It does drive me nuts. But, if you're going to, all I would say to my fellow atheists is, if you're going to attack religion with all these rules of logic and all these showing out their inconsistencies, you have to use the same criteria when judging anything else. If you're going to be a skeptic of everything. I want to thank you for coming by my channel. Comments have a way of influencing the content of Friday's videos. I didn't really have one. I do want to give a little channel report here. I went down to 18 subscribers. Now I'm back up to 20, thanks to a couple of new ones. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm just kind of trying to get to 50 at this point. 25 would actually be a milestone, I guess. And 5 more and I'll be at 25. But I thank you all for that. I will respond to any comment when I can. Sometimes I don't respond because I don't think it merits one. You can also ask direct questions anytime if you're looking to understand something. You can also suggest stuff that you would like to see me do. Videos are uploaded Tuesday and Friday. I'm going to probably start uploading them closer to 6 o'clock because it allows me on Tuesday and Fridays, if I have the time, to just come home, do a video, and post it, particularly on Friday. One thing I won't tolerate is name calling. As you can guess, it's not one of my favorite things. If you're going to call somebody a fool or an idiot or a liar, demonstrate it. One of my favorite ways of calling somebody a liar is demonstrating the lie and then asking the question, how is that not deceptive? That's a better approach, in my opinion. Be sure to like and subscribe and get your notifications. And hopefully I can someday convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. In the meantime, this is Ed Rabyd, the Rabid Atheist, signing off and wishing you a good day. Stay safe.